All right, so today we are talking about an exciting topic, which is why should you franchise? Why should you go with an existing franchise system versus starting from scratch? And we have a lot to say there. Full disclaimer, I'm extremely biased because I have done the start from scratch. I have bought franchises, and now we've started a franchise for Junk Raiders. So I certainly have an opinion, and it is biased. But I want to start by asking you, Davis, from your vantage point, having now done this for almost 6 years, we started from scratch. Now we have a franchise system in place. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you what is the difference? Why should you go with an existing franchise system versus starting on your own?
I'd like to set the table with um, yes, we are very biased in that we do have a franchise model, and obviously we believe in that. But everything that we say on this episode or moving forward, like you should do your own research, your own due diligence, and make a decision that's best for you relative to the service or product that you're trying to launch. There's not a one size fits all, but what I can talk about and what my opinions are going to the place my opinions are going to come from are going to be based on our own experience in the waste management industry and years of researching the franchise model versus what they call independent or just starting a business on your own outside of a franchise model, which is what you and I did 6 years ago with Junk Raider. So with that said, in summation, I would start there with a franchise system is very attractive because you get I heard it on a podcast the other day. I forget exactly what the quote was, but somebody was like, you basically can own your own business and you have a whole boat of people that are helping you drive it, but it's still your business. That's the franchise model. And some folks coin it as the best, the best business model in the world. Obviously they're probably biased because they've been very successful in the franchise model. But if you actually peel back the onion, if you will, and look at why they say that, it really is an attractive model. And I would point people to the stats. I didn't look at the statistics with you 6 years ago when we started Junk Raider. I just didn't. Out of ignorance, maybe I didn't have great mentors, whatever the case may be. But as I sit here today and I see the stats that 9 out of 10 franchise businesses that get started are still in operation after 2 years, and the opposite is true for independents, 9 out of 10 businesses are not in operation once they hit the 2 year mark. That's staggering in a world where a lot of folks don't live in truth and reality, and we like to just talk about things how what feels right. We should be looking at numbers, what's true and what's false, and what's true are those stats. And there's a reason why they're true. To kind of start to get into the weeds here, franchise models allow you to start a business that somebody else has already proven. And here's the blueprint to the success. And if you follow this, you too should be successful in it if you follow the blueprint and you work hard and all that stuff. If you start a business, even if you start a business like junk removal on your own it already exists. It's not like you're starting a brand new service offering that nobody's consumed before. You're still starting with unknowns, a whole laundry list of unknowns. Where do you dump? What type of trucks are the best ones to buy? What type of insurance do you go get? How do you price jobs? Like these are just some of the basic talking points and questions that get raised all the time. Not to mention all the minutia that you can get into day to day. But like, I'll start with that. Like, look at the stats. If you're interested in business ownership and starting something on your own, which is great, this country thrives on business ownership and entrepreneurship. We need more people that own businesses. You should look at starting the stats of starting it on your own versus buying into a franchise system and work through all of that brick and mortar franchise systems, like retail, food concepts, quick serve concepts, home service based businesses. Look at all the stats relative to what you're wanting to start and then make a decision of how you want to go about it. So back over to you after my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that is absolutely true. That it should be a data driven decision. It should be based on numbers. But I think where you started was so spot on as far as look at it just completely objectively and go, what are the odds you're going to succeed if you start on your own? And this is hard for most people because we're not hardwired to be critical thinkers, especially with ourselves. Like if we come up with the idea, we think it's great. And so when we have this idea of starting this business, we tend to get very emotionally attached to it. And then reason starts to take a backseat. But the numbers don't lie. You're exactly right. 1 out of 10 of these businesses in the US fail versus on the franchise side, it's 1 out of 10. Sorry, I may have just butchered that. 9 out of 10 businesses fail if you're starting on your own. But if you're with a franchise, the odds are completely the opposite. 90% chance that it's going to be successful or higher with a franchise system. And why is that? All the reasons you unpack there. It's credibility. They've done this. It's a proven model. You have the support, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let's get really nuanced though. Super honest discussion. Let's pretend that we're talking. We're at a coffee shop. It's a buddy of ours, and he says, "Okay, give it to me straight." I would say, "Okay, first of all, could you do this on your own without us, without a franchise?" Of course you could. Let's really get into it though. Why do you want to do it completely on your own? Right? 9 times out of 10, there's money that's going to come into the equation really quickly.
Mhm.
Well, man, I don't have 25 grand. Let's just be honest. I don't have 50 grand. I don't have 100 grand. I don't have 300. Okay, what have you got? Okay, I have got 10 grand that I can put towards this business. All right, well, you're pretty much going to be out of the running for any franchise system that you can think of, besides maybe doing home cruises. You know, if you want to get people in cruise ships or be a Disney consultant, I think they have franchises under 10 grand in that capacity. But on a serious note, if you're really wanting to do this and you've got 10 grand, you absolutely can, and you don't need a franchise. And good news, you can't buy one for 10 grand. So you kind of have to go that route if you don't have enough money. So if I'm talking to my buddy, I'm saying, okay, first of all, we can probably overcome that. Do you have decent enough credit to get financing? Let's assume the answer is no. Okay. Do you have any family, friends, anyone that believes in you? Okay. If the answer is no, again, let's cut this conversation short and just be honest. You're prickly. That's why you can't do this. If you can get your hands on the money, though, if you can find a friend, family member, someone that believes in you, that will invest in you or with you, maybe be a partner, that is the way to go. Here's why. Here's why. You have a 90% chance of being successful over here. You have a 10% chance of being successful over here because what you don't know will hurt you. You don't know the difference between a landfill, a transfer station, a recycle center. You don't understand those things, and it will absolutely hurt you. Not only will you waste so much time trying to figure this out, you're going to lose an insane amount of money. Let's put it this way. When we first started, we were not taking all the scrap metal and putting it in one spot and saying, hey, why don't we just do a scrap metal run and just get money for that stuff instead of paying to get rid of it? In our beginning days, unfortunately, it didn't last too long, but in the beginning stages, we didn't know. So we were just taking everything. If it's in the truck, it's getting dumped. How much money did we throw away? A lot, right? We did the opposite. We literally spent money to dispose of that stuff when we could have been earning money to get rid of that stuff. That's just a small example. But if we're being really honest, the biggest thing that I would say to that person is it's probably going to be money related why you're wanting to go on your own. Because if they say, well, I just want to be my own boss, you're your own boss as a franchisee. Well, yeah, but I want to be able to do this on my own and maybe I am the franchisor one day. Okay, different story. If that's your goal going into it, you may be better off doing this thing on your own. But if it comes down to money, 9 times out of 10, we can overcome that. There is a price point that's probably ideal for you depending on your market, but we can probably help you. You know, we can find funding most likely if you have good credit, decent credit. If that's not the case, we're going to push you to try to find friends, family, someone that can partner with you, invest, give you that money. Um, that is a no brainer because, again, the success rate is so high. The other thing, though, to consider is really what do you want to do, right? If you want to do this thing and just build, 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 and you're that guy that says, man, I want to work until I can't work anymore. Okay, well, then that might be the better fit for you. But if you're that guy that's coming in saying, I want to be able to make my money work for me. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad years ago, and I believe in that model. Great. You're who we're looking for. Because what we want to do, what a franchise system wants to do, is teach you how to run the business and how to effectively have that business run itself eventually. What does that mean? It means We're going to teach you how to get the right people. And any good franchise system is going to do this. They're going to have the systems, processes in place that they're going to enable you to let that business kind of run itself. Why would they do that? Because they want it to grow, right? I want a franchisee to come on board with us in Columbia, South Carolina. I want them to come on board with us and get as up to speed as quickly as they can so they can get another territory and then another territory and another territory. So it's in our best interest to give you all the knowledge and make sure that you are scalable. And I touched on this on our last one, but that's where you want to get people that can scale. And that just means people that have the capacity to handle a lot of stuff. They can multitask, they don't get stressed out, and they treat the business like it's their business. So those are all the things that a good franchisor is going to teach you and empower you with, give you all those tools to where you're not doing this on your own. The value is far outweighing your investment. And let's be honest, in the right market, that investment you've made is going to be paid off potentially in 6 months if you're in the right market. Maybe it's going to take you a year. Now, that depends on how many employees you have. Are you starting off with 10 employees? It may be 2 years before you pay it off. But if you are smart, again, franchisor is going to help guide you down that path. Hey, guys, you don't need to start off with 6 employees. I don't know. You need two. You need two full-time employees that are dedicated if you're the backup. Anyway, so many variables to consider here. But those are just a few examples why I would say a franchisor, if you have the money, if you have the ability to access the money, buying into a franchise system is hands down the way to go.
You just had to go to the
I
money
have to.
avenue.
I mean, that's
You
where
know,
every conversation goes
I'm
immediately.
glad that you mentioned it because it is the elephant in the room with any conversation I ever have with anyone looking at franchises or just starting a business. And most oftentimes it comes back to, I just had this conversation the other day. It comes back to, why would I pay you a fee, an upfront fee or ongoing royalties when I could start this on my own? If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I wouldn't need to be a franchisor. I'd be a rich man. But here's a few things. I think just in general, the narrative around franchise or independent really just needs to change because I think franchise sometimes has a negative connotation because people think, oh, fees, royalties, structure. I've got to fit within this bubble. And if I go outside of it, then I'm getting myself into legal issues. Like maybe technically, sure, but there's a reason why those guardrails exist anyways. But the narrative needs to change because here's what I outlined the other day for this gentleman. If you look at a franchise fee and then a royalty, yes, those are two expenses, costs that you would have to think about or account for when you start your business. Let's just use junk removal, for example. You have to account for an upfront franchise fee and an ongoing royalty if you buy into a franchise system. You don't have to account for those if you start it independently. But outside of those two things, you have to account for everything else it takes to run the business in both models. You have to go buy insurance as a franchisee. You have to go buy insurance as an independent operator. You have to go buy a truck as a franchisee. You have to go buy a truck as an independent operator. You get where I'm going with this. The line items inside of your QuickBooks profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, your statement of cash flows, your expenses, everything that you look at inside of QuickBooks, ADP, whatever you use for your accounting software. And by the way, that's another thing you have to go buy, regardless of the model. Accounting software is going to be the exact same, except in a franchise model, you will have paid a one-time franchise fee up front, and then you pay ongoing royalties to be part of that. So then someone's like, oh yeah, well, those two are massive expenses that you have to account for. Sure, for good reason. What do you get with an upfront franchise fee and ongoing royalties that you have to pay back? You get to prove your concept in probably 2 or 3 years, maybe less, versus 5 to 10 years if you did it on your own. And oh, by the way, let's remember that statistic that we mentioned earlier. You likely, if you're part of the majority, aren't going to make it to year 5 as an independent. You'll make it to year 2 and then you'll go out of business. I don't mean to be a fearmonger here. It's just I'm trying to speak in truth and facts. But I think the narrative around franchise systems versus independence, like I see it all the time in Facebook groups, junk removal guy. And I'll say this as a caveat too. Franchise models are not for everybody. And
Yes.
franchise models aren't for every type of company either. not every junk removal franchise company should be franchising. There are really bad ones out there that you could buy into. And that's where you get a lot of disgruntled franchisees. They bought into the wrong system. There was too many guardrails. They ended up getting feed, left and right by the franchisor, and they just became, they looked negatively at the franchise system in general. And I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But what you get back in a franchise model is time. So what then the conversation turns to, what is the time worth? Is it worth a $50,000 upfront franchise fee and paying 6% royalties month over month? Some people might say no. Others would, you know, sing praises to the franchise ors and say, yes, it's absolutely worth it. So I like to fast forward in life when it comes to any decision and say, what does this look like when we're in the moment, right? Hey, wifey, you want to go on this trip with the kids? Put yourself in the shoe. Like let's picture ourselves sitting at Waffle House with the kids and a family member, whoever. Do you want to be in that moment? And make your decision now based on the moments. Same thing with business ownership. Fast forward 6 months or 12 months, and you wake up, it's Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. You know you got to get your day started. Do you want to be doing this thing on your own? You don't have a lifeline. You don't have anybody you can just pick up the phone and call immediately and get an answer. Hey, I just blew my tire. How do you guys handle this? I've got a job at 9 a.m. It's 7:30. I've got to fix this tire and get to the landfill to dump before the 9 a.m. Do you guys call the customer now? Do you let them know, or do you just keep it off the record? Like, where do I take this? That's a real world example in junk removal where, as part of a franchise system, you can pick up your phone and call somebody like me, Ted, a field manager, a VP of ops, anybody. We have the answer. As an independent, you're stuck on your own figuring those types of things out day by day by day by day. And hopefully you get past that 2 year mark. And even then, your revenues are likely taking a hit and you're not doing what you should be doing in your market from a top line revenue perspective because you're just struggling day in and day out. Again, not to be a fear monger, there's plenty of independent folks, not within junk removal, outside of junk removal, all sorts of services that are super successful as independent business operators. But to me, the writing is on the wall of like, okay, if I can get a blueprint on day one, and not just the blueprint, because I'm not sure how many people actually read a blueprint or an ops manual, but it's nice to have. But you're buying into basically a mastermind community of a bunch of other people that are doing the exact same thing that you're doing day in and day out, that can be a resource for you in real time every single day. You can't do that as an independent. You can go to Facebook groups and post a question and maybe get some feedback within the same day, next day, a week later. Who knows where those people are in their business, if that's viable advice, whatever the case may be. But at least Davis Fisher, as a franchisee in Charlotte, North Carolina, if Joe Schmo in Dallas, Texas calls me, he's like, "Hey man, I know we're part of the same Junk Raider brand. Like, I just blew my tire at 7:30. Like, what do you do in this scenario?" And I can just tell you the answer. It's a game changer. Like, it's a game changer. So I think we changed the rhetoric around just the word franchise and the word independent. Like, do one or the other. Like, you have the same. It's all running a business.
Yeah.
You're everybody's running a business, and you own the business. You have the EIN. You have your name on all the documents and the contracts. It's your business. You just have usually two other expenses over here, and I'm generalizing. There could be more based on how the FDD for the franchise brand is set up, but franchise fee and ongoing royalties that you have to account for in a franchise model, and you don't have it over here in independent. But you don't have the community. And I think for most folks, that is that's the most valuable thing in a franchise system, is the community that's all doing the same thing, going in the same direction as you, and you guys can just use each other to be successful. That's why franchise systems thrive.
Yeah. I almost think you could take, and this is a really simple way of looking at it, but if we're saying only 1 out of 10 businesses, non franchise, succeed long term, then you could almost deduce that down and say only 1 out of 10 people are really equipped right out of the gate, are good enough, if you will, to grow and manage a business. And I
Hmm.
think that's very telling. And again, there's a lot that goes into that, but that's where you take the average person and you just flip that whole model on its head. Now the average person coming in with no experience, but has the aptitude, has the money, right? Has at least the knowledge to say, hey, let me look at some of these franchise systems versus starting on our own. Because even if you're just the average person with no business background, you get all the tools. If I give you all the tools like an IKEA piece of furniture, I mean, think about that. Anyone can take a box with all the parts from IKEA and assemble that piece of furniture. And I think that's how a franchise system should be viewed is it's really this turnkey in the box system that anyone can come in with the right training, with kind of the pre-qualifiers up front, making sure that it is the right fit. But virtually anyone can come in if they check all these boxes and thrive. 90% versus 10%. So here's a just a quick list of things and we can wrap it up. But my quick list of things, number one, we've already touched on, which is the proven business model. Number two, though, is brand recognition. And as you know, what's looking like going to be a franchisee for us up in Minnesota came on board, and that was arguably the linchpin. That was arguably the topic that once we discussed, it was like, yeah, you're right. Is the brand recognition? If you're going to have a junk removal business, and you know that in these three states where you want to grow into, you can have the same name that is now becoming synonymous with junk removal nationwide. That alone is a big deal, right? So that is one that I think a lot of people tend to overlook, but it's a big one. If we grow to the point that we are looking for, you're talking about nationwide coverage, and that gives you a massive advantage when you go to sell, which is another point that I wrote down for the exit strategy. So, exit strategy, there's point number three. Another one is training and support. If you're doing this on your own, there is none. The only thing you're going to get that you can get readily without paying a lot of money would be just free YouTube videos, and they're valuable. It's what we're doing right now. They're very valuable, but it's very different to have this very surfacey YouTube video versus nuanced training, including where someone can hands-on get to your business and show you exactly what you're doing. A minor little thing that when tweaked can make all the difference in the way your business functions. Another one, which you have talked about and you have looked into, which is the economies of scale. As we grow, the bigger you get, you're able to buy things. Think of Costco versus Food Line. When you go to Costco, do you necessarily need 4 gallons of mayonnaise? No. But when the cost ends up being 25 cents or whatever it is per ounce versus what you'd get at Food Line, 4 or 5 times that, most people are like, oh, this makes sense. So the fact is, you get the economies of scale. You can buy things in bulk to where we then can pass those savings off to you, the franchisee. Access to resources is another big one. Having a repository of videos and documents and all these things that day one you can put your hands on and know how to run your business. Marketing and advertising. I would just say marketing is such a big category that day one, especially in this business, this is not a typical home service business. Why? Because it's very nuanced. There's just a lot of gray area to this business. When your Google ads are set up, if not done correctly, you're going to be getting lead after lead after lead for garbage, household garbage, and you're going to want to scream and lose your mind. You don't want those. So just having people that know what they're doing on the marketing side that can build amazing campaigns that are going to generate top tier leads, but not a bunch of garbage or not a bunch of only Spanish speakers to where you can't, it's a dead lead. What are you going to do with that? That's a massive lever that we bring or that a franchisor is going to bring to the table. You said it, the support network is huge, risk management is huge, having trusted advisors that are there in your corner with a bias to your success that are going to help you all the way through from start to finish. The last one I would mention is just the faster startup. How quickly do you want to get up and running? How quickly do you want to grow your business? When you have that proven model, you can do that much faster than when you're trying to learn. You're the tired analogy. You're on the plane, right? You're building the plane while you're flying it. Well, that's what most startups are like because it's not a proven system. But when you're in with a franchisor that has a proven model, all that's been done for you. So that's my top 10 list.
Yeah, I'll end it with two things. One is addressing an FAQ, which is about the franchise fee and what that gets you. what I would do is flip that on its head a little bit. And as an independent, think about what you're probably going to pay for over X number of years, just say 5 years, 10 years. You are likely going to reach out for help to mentors, right? You might go buy a course. There's so many courses that you can buy in the junk removal space, which is literally just, here's this thing you just paid, credit card is swiped. Here's now this deliverable. Now you have to work through it yourself. You have to read it, watch the videos, whatever it is. And that can cost $5,000, $20,000, $30,000. Who knows? I don't even know what they cost these days, but those numbers are realistic. And so when you look at a franchise fee, let's just say that it's a, industry average is $50,000 to upfront to buy into this franchise system. Well, you're going to sign a 10-year agreement. And so basically, if you want to look at it this way, you're spending $5,000 a year on continuing education and access to this brand. That to me is a lesser of an expense than the $20,000 course that you get one time and then have to try to deduce all the information in and figure it out on your own. You're just given a pamphlet. $5,000 a year investment to start, run, grow, and scale a business successfully. That's kind of how I address the franchise fee if anybody ever brings it up, because we obviously have expenses on our side as the franchisor. We have to properly support you. And I'll end with this: who is franchising not for? Franchising, really, any business is not for somebody that just wants to dip their toe in the water. And don't have that. I don't want that to be confused with somebody that wants to start a side hustle to prove the concept before they move over completely away from their W-2 jobs. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about the guy that maybe just wants to start it on a weekend because he's got a pickup truck and he'll run some Craigslist ads just to make, the vision is that I just want to make a few extra bucks. That's fine. Go do your thing. But I would not call it a business in any model, franchise, or you're actually starting a business. You're just making some weekend money. Franchising or starting a business in general is not for somebody that just wants to dip your toe in the water, see how it feels, and then, get in, get out. Like you see it all the time. People pop up in junk removal, specifically junk removal. They'll pop up, rear their heads for 6 to 12 months, and then they're gone. Never to hear from them again. We had this, anyways, I'm not even going to bring it up. Guy in South Carolina trying to sell his junk removal business, and we looked at the numbers. We're like, you actually should owe us something. Like, your business is worth nothing here. No offense. Yeah. But that's what I would say is to start a business, it takes capital in any model. You have to go buy a truck. You have to go buy insurance. Everything I just mentioned, uniforms, all this stuff. Is it brick and mortar? You got to buy you got to pay for rent. Like, you're paying for that. All of this laundry list of items in either model. It is not for somebody that just wants to dip my toe in the water, see how it feels. It's for somebody that has a burning desire to own a business, get into business ownership for themselves, control their financial freedom, operate on their own terms. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. You have to do the self inventory for that. So that's what I would end with, is that we as a franchisor trying to bring on franchisees or franchise business owners. Like, you are the owner of your own business. We are looking for certain individuals that have a vision for themselves and for what they want to build. This is their thing. It could be part of a portfolio of things that they do, but like, a business ownership is their thing. They're not just dipping their toe in the water. So that's what I would end with. If you're obviously interested in, getting into a franchise, into a brand that already exists by way of a franchise model, we'd love to chat with you. But please know that you need to be all in from a vision perspective. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be all in, and this business is the only thing you ever do, and you're on the truck 24/7. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But you do have to be in from a vision perspective, all in, and we'd love to chat with you. So I'll end it with that. Ted, anything your way?
No, I think that was well said and great summary. Well, guys, we hope you got something good out of this. Either way, leave us comments and let us know if you want to hear a specific topic next time, and we'll be sure to address that. Until next time. See you, Davis.
Bye.